Yeah, I was in college, and a buddy and I decided for spring break we were going to drive to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It was a small taste of adventure, and certainly growing up in Nebraska and feeling like there was so much out there in the world that I didn't have access to, that's really what gave me this desire. And so I know I spent a lot of my 20s really just hitting it hard and taking every opportunity I could to go anywhere and meet any new person and go to any new culture and just to experience everything that I felt like I'd been held back from for so long.
What do you do when you come out as LGBTQ and love the outdoors? What do you do when you see the outdoor space ruled by older white cis men and desire a diverse community of outdoor lovers? Accept it, change it, create it. I am Justin Yoder, and this is LGBT Outdoors. Hey everyone, I'm Justin Yoder, and I'm the host of the LGBT Outdoor podcast with two of my co-hosts, JC Rienton and Patrick Thompson. How's it going, boys?
What's up? How's it going? Doing well.
I'm exhausted. We had Dallas Pride this past weekend, and it was a lot.
It was a lot, but it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Very, very busy. Met, got over 100 people to sign up for our email list to get involved here in our local DFW chapter. That's Dallas Fort Worth, by the way. But it was a lot for sure.
I saw the reel. Yeah. You guys look busy.
We were so busy. So we were lucky this year, and we had 4 of us that were working the booth. But we were all of us were losing our voice by the time we were getting into the afternoon. We technically, what's the right word I want to use here, Patrick? We technically engaged with 1,200 people by handing out stuff. But we had 100 that signed up to be a part of the email list for Dallas Fort Worth. So it was a lot of talking, a lot of standing, and it was fun. We had a great time.
Yeah. And happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yeah.
Woo-woo.
Happy Pride Month. Busiest month for us.
It's a big deal. Yeah. It's been super crazy. But I mean, it's an awesome busy, because we've got people reaching out who want to connect during Pride Month. And we've got all sorts of events going on. And it's just an exciting time to be alive.
That it is, at least for LGBT Outdoors. Hopefully for everyone else too. There's a lot going on in our country right now, but hey.
Yeah. But that's why Pride Month is important. You know, like visibility is so crazy essential to, crafting the hearts and minds of people who might be on the fence. And, you've heard the saying, like, it's hard to hate somebody that you know. And like actually knowing somebody, and like it makes a difference. And just to show that, like, hey, we're out here, we're not going away, but we're human. We are, for our case, we're out exploring the great outdoors and enjoying nature, and being aware of the environment and trying to help out with that as well. Like that's all really cool stuff. So yeah, happy Pride Month.
Definitely. So we have an amazing guest today that I'm super excited about. The 3 of us talked about different people that we thought we could have on for Pride Month that would be great. And we kept coming back to who we selected, and I'm excited. So I want to dive in and give him plenty of time to be able to share his stories. And he's got a lot, I am sure, that he can unpack. But tell you a little bit about our guest. Road trip and national park expert Mikah Meyer has been named a social media warrior by MTV, honored by Late Night with Seth Meyers, and featured on NPR, The Guardian, Upworthy, and The Today Show, among thousands of media outlets globally for his Travel Beyond convention. Called a professional road tripper by REI, Mikah's 3-year world record road trip to all 419 U.S. National Park Service sites made him the first to experience all the parks in a single journey. great thing about having Mikah on this episode is, yes, it's Pride Month, but next month is National Parks Month, so it goes hand in hand. Mikah, thank you for joining us tonight.
It's my pleasure. I think you just covered everything, so I can probably go eat some ice cream now and call it a night, right?
And that's our podcast for today. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
If only. No, there's so much to unpack with you. And I think a great starting point would be just for you to share with our listeners about who you are, where you grew up, maybe if you want to touch on your coming out story, how you got involved with everything that you're doing with the national parks and raising awareness for the LGBTQ community. You've got a lot of irons in the fire that are making a big difference. So whatever that looks like, sharing about who you are with our listeners, dive into that for a minute.
I mean, well, it's probably a bit cliche, tale as old as time, because I come from one of those states that is just known for outdoor adventure and people being out there doing crazy, wild, rugged outdoor things. And of course, that state is Nebraska, which actually is pretty much known for nothing. And when I lived on the East Coast, I would always tell people I was from Nebraska, and this kind of glazed over look would come across their face. And I would say, you don't know where that is, do you? And because it was DC, they would always, they want to know everything about politics. And they'd say, yes, I do. And so I would challenge them to name me a border state, because there's a lot. It shouldn't be that hard.
Right.
And without fail, they would always start by guessing Oklahoma.
Oh,
and I think
no.
maybe it's because of the football rivalry with Nebraska in the 80s. Like, there was a lot of national attention from that. But I tell them no. And then without fail, they either guess Idaho or Wisconsin.
Wow.
So then I tell them that would take me like 12 hours to drive to either state. And then on the third guess, they would either get it right, or, you will love this, without fail, the last guess, I think just because it's big and they think it must touch a lot of states, they would guess Texas.
Oh, goodness.
And if you
Swing and a miss.
if you couldn't get at least one state within 3 tries, I would just say goodbye. But then usually if they got one right, they felt really good about themselves and they'd ask to buy me a drink. So I got a lot of free drinks by being from Nebraska, which honestly is the reparations that I was due after having to grow up in Nebraska. So it all came full circle.
Hey, I can relate a little bit because I grew up in Missouri, so I am next door to you. Yeah,
you are. You're a border state, just the corner. People forget that one often.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So tell us about what it was like in Nebraska. What did you have an interesting coming out story? We know a lot of people have difficult ones. Some have great ones. And then how did you dive into everything that you're involved in now?
Yeah, well, I didn't grow up just in Nebraska. I grew up sort of in the heart of its religious center, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, right by the college football stadium, which is the state religion. And my dad was the Lutheran campus minister at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, which at one point was the largest Lutheran campus ministry in America. And my dad won the award for being the best Lutheran campus pastor in the country. So if that sort of gives you an idea of what sort of culture I grew up in, it was a lot of football and a lot of heteronormativity and a lot of expectations to be the perfect pastor's son. And I can give you one guess what part of the conversation that we're having tonight is not part of being the perfect award-winning campus pastor's son. So I didn't come out until I left Nebraska. I actually didn't even meet an openly gay adult until I left Nebraska. During my high school years, my state voted 70% to 30% to make marriage one man, one woman. And the things that were said about queer people during that campaign was enough to let me know I'd better keep my mouth shut if I wanted any hope of surviving to making it out of Nebraska. So I was really lucky in that I left the state, and my first college professor that I met ended up becoming my life mentor. And he and I have stayed really close friends to this day. He's also the first openly gay adult I ever met. So I was lucky that I went to the Bible Belt to Memphis and somehow there found my way to coming out of the closet. So it was a long journey. filled with lots of years of praying to God to fix me. But fortunately, God didn't listen to me. And here I am today talking to y'all.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to a lot about that because, like, my parents were very religious, and my dad was raised Amish. So a whole other level, but
Rumspringa. Yeah, there you go. There's your get out of gay jail free card.
Yeah, for a little bit at least. But yeah, so I mean that's quite a journey to be able to go on. When did you get involved with the outdoors? Like, and I don't know, like how I know that you obviously love running. That's one of your big things and one of your passions. And running in some interesting attire choices as well. That is really fun. But was running one of the things that you connected to during this time, or you're shaking your head no?
No, I mean, I feel like this is the Little Shop of Horrors musical because, you know, it says at the beginning that the journey began in the most unlikely of places, as these always do. And I think that's sort of the truth. I mean, I was the kid that could not run a mile without getting a side ache. I played tennis because you could do short bursts of movement and not distance. And that kept me from getting side aches. And so that was my sport, which is a very heteronormative sport in Nebraska. And I got a lot of positive affirmations for playing tennis. But no, sort of, you know, hearing what I've done, people kind of assume that I must have been like a Boy Scout or that my parents took me camping a lot. And the truth is that none of that happened because my dad worked on the weekends on Sunday mornings. So like we did not do the typical outdoorsy things. I was in my 20s before I ever went to a National Park Service site. So I share all that to say that like my life now is doing outdoor adventures. And that didn't happen until my 20s and 30s. Really, even my 30s, I didn't set off on my national parks journey until I turned 30. I didn't start running until I was 32. And now I get paid to do both. So if you're listening to this, not to sound like Gary Vee, but like it's not too late. Whatever you want to do with your life, I hope I'm living proof that you can do it.
That's amazing.
Nice.
So you went to your first national park when you said you were 21?
Yeah, I was in college at the University of Memphis, and a buddy and I decided for spring break we were going to drive to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So it's like 8 hours across the state of Tennessee from Memphis. And I was so unequipped to camp, thank God, that he was an Eagle Scout. And so I basically just like listened to everything he said. But it was a small taste of adventure, and certainly growing up in Nebraska and feeling like there was so much out there in the world that I didn't have access to. That's really what gave me this desire to sort of see everything I could and do everything I could. And so I know I spent a lot of my 20s really just hitting it hard and taking every opportunity I could to go anywhere and meet any new person and go to any new culture and just to experience everything that I felt like I'd been held back from for so long.
Yeah.
And when I was 19, my dad passed from esophageal cancer, and he was a big road trip fan. And so I've done one road trip every year since he passed around the time of his passing, April 29th, and just realized along the way that a lot of my peers seemed to think they were guaranteed to live to 80. And my dad passed at 58, never got to retire and never got to do his retirement goals. And so I've always had this awareness that I need to sort of tackle those things I want to do and those people I want to meet now. Maybe not tackle the people, but you get what I'm saying. See that I can't shake the football. I told you it's a state religion.
It's just instilled in you.
It is. You know, I'm just driven to score touchdowns or something. It's the corn. It's definitely the corn. But yeah, so really just wanted to do something to share that lesson that I had to learn in a hard way. And so I decided when I was 30, I was going to do one of my retirement goals. And so I saved up throughout my 20s, put away as much money as I could with this goal that when I turned 30, I would visit every single National Park Service site. And so that's sort of what put me on the map as far as now being a full-time professional adventurer, was completing that journey from April 29th, 2016 to April 29th, 2019.
Wow.
I'm just trying to comprehend all of that. Like, that is incredible. Like, and I'm sure that you realize that, but like, for most of us that are sitting here, and yes, you know, like you said, not to sound like Gary Vee, but you were encouraging everybody, like, you can do this. You know, we want to encourage people the same, you know, and go after your outdoor goals, because so many times we hear people like, oh, I want to go to even the simpler ones than what you were doing. Just, I want to go to one national park, or I want to go to Yellowstone, or I want to go to Rocky Mountain National Park. And then we're always like telling them, like, do it. Like Rocky Mountain National Park's in JC's backyard. And he's always getting people to go up there, which is incredible. Unfortunately, we don't have a national park too close to us when we're out here in Texas.
It's the price you pay for being a huge state.
Yeah, I know it. Well, yeah. I'm almost going down a side tangent here, but I won't. But yeah, how would you encourage people to start going after some of these goals? Because I know, like, you know, you said you saved up and was able to go for your first trip, but like, you know, somebody that thinks like they can't do it or they don't have the time, which is probably one of the bigger excuses you hear. What would you say to people that think that they have time, aside from, like, obviously, like you're saying, we aren't guaranteed our time. You know, your dad passed away. So sorry about that. But you know, like you said, life is not guaranteed. You know, I had a cousin that died when she was about 16. And so how can you motivate people to be able to take those steps and like really go after some of these dreams that they have, that they've been waiting maybe years to do, and maybe think they're going to be waiting more years before they can do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty simple answer that I'm going to get to in a roundabout way here. But, you know, we put up posters of Michael Jordan on our wall. We put up posters of Serena Williams on our wall. We look at the big accomplishments of people who have done these incredible things. And I'll count my 3-year journey in that sort of big, awe-inspiring, like, oh, how could I ever do that? And we forget that they didn't start there. And so, you know, I'd been doing one road trip every year since I was 19. That first road trip was a week, but from age 25 to 26, I lived out of my dad's old car for 9 months. And so I learned a lot in that process. And so some of those annual road trips were a few days or a week, but some of them were a month or 9 months. And so I slowly built up to that big accomplishment that gets seen, but you don't see the little things. And so, you know, I would say if you are someone that has a big goal, ask yourself what that goal, what that point is, where that B point is, and where you're at now at A, and say, what are the steps I have to do to get between A and B, and what's the next step from where I'm at, and just go do that one. Because then it's like every therapist will tell you, you know, you tackle little goals to then tackle big goals, because by the time you got to the big one, you've done all these little ones, and it's not that far of a leap. Whereas if you try to start from the beginning, it's this huge leap. So every single U.S. state and territory has a National Park Service site in it. It might not be a capital N, capital P national park, but you likely have a national monument or a national historical park or a national preserve or reserve. There's over 20 different designations. Even you in Dallas, you're not that far from Waco Mammoth. So I would say the easiest thing to do, as far as my expertise and when it comes to national parks, is go to the NPS website, look at the very large map of every National Park Service site, and I distinguish that from national parks, and look at what the closest one is, and just say, I'm going to figure out my next day off or my next road trip with my friends, and we're going to go to that one. And then you'll figure out the next step after that.
Nice. Baby steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes it a lot more attainable, I think, for people. You did mention, and I love that you mentioned this, that there's a difference between the national parks and the national park sites. Can you dive into that a little bit and share with us what the difference is and what benefits some might have over others, or what recommendations you might have with them?
Yeah, I kind of love being petty when people, they'll write me and they'll write lowercase n, lowercase p national parks, which is what a lot of park rangers will do to reference every National Park Service site. And so I'll write them back and I'll say, like, oh, you know, I would go to City of Rocks National Reserve. And they're like, no, I want a national park. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you didn't write that. That sounds mean. I feel like I've done way more like polite shade than that. That was a bad example. But no, I just think it's funny. We're so obsessed with the 63 capital N, capital P parks to the point that I've seen major news outlets publish articles that say the National Park Service manages 63 national parks, like completely ignoring these 361 other sites. And so, we do have all these different designations. And I just always point out that like Grand Canyon National Park was a national monument before it became a park. Acadia National Park was a national monument before it became a park. Indiana Dunes National Park, a new one, was a national lakeshore before it became a national park. And that's because Congress has to designate a national park, but the president, through one stroke of a pen in the Antiquities Act, can designate a national monument. So if there is a worry that they need to protect something quick, oftentimes the president will just do it as a national monument because Congress can't agree on anything and it takes them a while to get around to the park status. So that's sort of a quick and dirty on the differences. But really, many of our future national parks are today national preserves, reserves, monuments, etc. And you can get in on it early and go to them now when they're way less crowded. One of my favorite examples is similar to what you were just talking about with Rocky Mountain National Park. So not too far from there, about 3 hours, is Dinosaur National Monument. It gets 7% as many visitors as either Zion National Park, also in Utah, or Rocky Mountain National Park nearby in Colorado. That's 93% less people clogging the roads, taking the parking spaces, bringing their kids to the beautiful sunset while they scream that they don't have their toy. That is so many fewer people who are distracting from the natural aspects of these places. So definitely go check out our 63 national parks. There are some incredible ones. But if you ask me for the best 63 sites in our National Park Service, a lot of them would not be those big famous national parks you've heard of.
That's a really, really interesting point. Very cool.
Yeah. Is it, do those sites have a lot of the same stipulations now that a lot of the parks do, as far as getting in and needing like time slots and all that kind of stuff? Probably not, because they don't have as many people.
No, I mean, if you look at the few amount of parks that need reservations, it's like Zion, Yellowstone, the big ones you've heard of. So again, there are really incredible sites that are just super accessible, actually allow you to escape into nature, and are often more affordable, and I would say as good, if not better, experiences.
That's amazing. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I do. I asked that question to the director of the National Park Service. It was Jonathan Jarvis at the time. And he said, the last national park I visited, that's my favorite. And I thought, man, that's a good answer. But I don't work for the Park Service. I can tell you the truth, folks. I just got back from my favorite. It's called Dinosaur National Monument. And it's that one that is, it's on the border of Colorado and Utah, up near the Wyoming border. And it has two rivers you can raft through, and one of them you can only raft in like May and June when the snow melt feeds the river. It's the last feeder of the Colorado River system that has yet to be dammed. So it's a really unique experience. And I had done the Green River through the Gates of Lodore in 2017. So I just went back last week to do the other river that runs through the monument, and that is the Yampa River.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a national park?
National monument.
It's a national monument. Okay, but it's still protected. So do you think, or to what degree is it protected? Like, do you think that they can ever dam that river?
Yeah, I mean, the federal government can do whatever they want. It's their land. It's our land too, so we can protest that if we want. Initially, the park was just like a small amount of acres that protected a quarry of dinosaur bones that was discovered. And then later it was expanded to protect a lot of these rivers and canyons. There have been proposals to put dams in Dinosaur National Monument. I think sort of what saved it is that there weren't really any big cities close enough that needed the power. and there were some other factors, some natural factors that just would have made it difficult to dam up the water. But there have been attempts to put dams on that river, and fortunately they've kept it from happening.
That's cool.
So far.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately. I mean, there's arguments to be made on
sure,
on both viewpoints.
So to mirror out Justin's question, what's your least favorite site in the system? I'm
gonna be diplomatic with this one.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say that, there are sites that to me were less interesting. There's one in Iowa dedicated to Herbert Hoover that is basically the preservation of a small Midwestern town, which I went to every holiday when we visited my grandma. So for me personally, that wasn't really that interesting. But if you love Herbert Hoover, if you're not from the Midwest, that's super interesting to see how people lived, in the middle of nowhere back at that time. So what I learned is that every single National Park Service site we had, it took a lot of financial capital to make the movement happen, to get everything organized. It took a lot of political capital to get somebody in the federal government to offer up the legislation or the executive action to protect it. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of personal capital of local people who are invested in it and volunteering their time and committed to telling that story. So I would never tell all these people that put all this effort into getting something created that their site was the worst. So there's something to be taken out of every National Park Service site. There are just some that you personally might enjoy more or less than others.
Okay. I can appreciate that answer. So I've got another question that's sort of middle of the road. Okay. Which site surprised you the most?
Oh, that's a tough one. I will say it's actually technically not even part of the official national park system. It is managed by them, but it's American Memorial Park in the Northern Mariana Islands on the island of Saipan. And it's like an affiliated site, so it's not part of the official 424 list. That's the current number of sites. And I just had the most incredible time out there. It's such a cool part of the American story. Everything that happened there in World War II. I mean, was it not for what happened in Guam and Saipan in World War II? Like, it's very plausible that Japan would have just taken the whole Western Front and the whole of World War II would have been different. And we would be speaking a different language right now. So that was super cool. And from just a pure tourist aspect, it's super affordable there. And so my friend who joined me, we joked that we were on our honeymoon and all the hotels in Hawaii were sold out. So we just got on the next plane and went to Guam. But the prices there are like mainland USA. And it's a lot of tourists from Asia who come there sort of as their Hawaii. And so if you're looking for a tropical experience in a American territory that, not to bring it back to football, but, pot, kettle, black here, they love the NFL out there. You can go and use your American dollar and watch the NFL and be in the other half of the world in tropical paradise where the prices are the same as they are in Nebraska. Like, that's pretty cool.
Hey, right on.
Yeah, cool. And probably kind of trippy in the head at the same time because like you travel this far and then all of a sudden there's so much that's so familiar at the same time.
But it's cool because they still have the local Chamorro culture there. So it's this mix of a local culture with American culture, with Japanese culture and other occupiers who were there. So you have that historical aspect. You still have military pieces of equipment. Like there's tanks that are just stuck in the sand. So you can snorkel out to this tank and stand on top of it and then go back to the beach and go to the casino that was built there and get a 2-hour Thai massage for $30.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that.
Nice.
Right? And your phone works. Boom. Great.
Works like
so
just like
I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Justin.
No, go ahead.
So like looking back at all the times you went to these national park sites, what's your approach? Do you typically go to what they're known for? Or do you usually pick the lesser known aspects of those sites?
I do what I like to do at each site. And I say that in the sense that when people ask me what they should do at a national park, and I always say the first thing you should do is get your map at the gate and then go directly to the visitor center. And I say that number one, because, for example, I was just at Dinosaur National Monument. I planned to show my friend my favorite view from my favorite hike. Well, it was snowed in, and about 12 miles up the road, we would have had to turn around. And so I saved that time of driving 12 miles at 30 miles per hour just to be turned around by stopping in and asking the visitor center. So number one, always check in the visitor center. And then number two, talk to the people there, because they're either paid professionals or they are local volunteers who are so passionate about that park that they volunteer their time to stand at the visitor center booth. So you can go up to them and you can say, hey, I really love hikes that have lots of close-up views of diverse flora and fauna. Or I only like big vistas, or I only want to learn about the history of this place, or I only want to learn about the natural wonders. What should I do? And you have free expert advice no matter where you are in any state or territory. So don't bypass that. And that's what I would do. I would go up and I'd say, hey, here's how much time I have here. These are the things I typically like to do. What do you recommend I do?
Yeah, I love that. Because one of the things that I always recommend when people go to national park, especially like when people have questions about Rocky Mountain National Park and like, what should I hit? I'm like, talk to the rangers. Like you'll get the best recommendation right at the booth, because they know what trails are going to be closed, what's going to be accessible, but they'll also give you suggestions on like, you know, what's best to visit right now. They know what's going to be the most crowded, and I don't know, I just think, you know, they're a great resource that we're not using enough, and they know so much about the park that they work at.
And they ain't doing it for money, and they ain't doing it for job security, because they don't have either. So you know they love it when they're getting paid shit and they're only seasonal workers and they still keep coming back.
Yeah.
You've heard me talk about how awesome LGBT Outdoor Fest is, and now I want to tell you about our home for LGBT Outdoor Fest, Rainbow Ranch. Located in Groesbeck, Texas, just a short drive from Dallas or Austin, and on the edge of Lake Limestone, Rainbow Ranch is the largest LGBTQ plus campground in Texas. They have been named Best Weekend Getaway by the Dallas Voice for 9 years. With nearly 700 acres to explore, there's hiking and bike trails, fishing, canoes, sand volleyball, and even a pool to relax in. Whether you're wanting to camp under the stars or stay in a cabin, the friendly staff at Rainbow Ranch has you covered. They've got primitive campsites with power and water, large cabins, small cabins, RV spots, an apartment, and even a house that can sleep up to 14 people. We've been out to Rainbow Ranch a handful of times to camp with friends and enjoy some special event weekends, and it's always a great time. For more information on their special events and accommodations, you can make your reservation at rainbowranch.net. So if you're wanting to unplug and recharge or explore and let loose, head on over to Rainbow Ranch. So, I'd love it if you would, especially since it's Pride Month, if you would dive into kind of your advocacy. Why am I having a hard time saying that? Advocacy. There we go.
Advocacy.
Is that right?
Advocacy.
Yes.
Advocacy.
There it is.
There it is. Love it when I get tongue-tied. But yeah, because I know that you were doing a lot of amazing stuff for our community. I think that that's important, especially being Pride Month, that I want people to hear about some of the great stuff that you're being able to accomplish for our community.
Well, thank you. I think it's really important that we talk about this right now, because I've noticed this year, more than any other year in the past 8 years, what feels like a coordinated effort to attack brands who are doing LGBTQ plus supportive products or promotions or campaigns. And especially I've noticed people are trying to reframe it as a political issue. And they're saying, you know, that who we are is a political issue. And really, it seems like it's a coordinated campaign to try to diminish queer people by specifically attacking Pride promotions. And I live in Minneapolis. I can see the Target headquarters out of my window. They've been sort of the latest brand to get hit with this this issue of, in some instances, violence being threatened against Target employees who are just trying to show up to their job and make their hourly wage because the corporate is carrying products. So I do think it's really important that we talk about that. And I say that in the sense that when I started planning for my national parks journey in 2014, I was fully aware that I had saved up maybe 1/5 of the amount of money what national park experts said it would take to pull off the journey. So I started looking for like who the gay Bear Grylls was, who were gay adventurers, queer people out there that were working with brands so that I could approach those brands and try to get sponsorships. And in 2016, the year that I launched my journey, what I learned was that in the history of the outdoors recreation industry in America, there had never been a Pride Month ad. There were no openly LGBTQ plus sponsored individuals, and there were no openly LGBTQ plus people in any advertisements ever in 2016, which taught me that if
in what field, in like the outdoor field or like
in the outdoor rec industry,
yeah,
which taught me that, you know, Marriott has been marketing to queer people for nearly 20 years now, which means since the early 2000s, even the Mormons, Marriott is owned by Mormons, even they've realized that like we're such good consumers, the pink dollar is such a valuable commodity because we have $1 trillion of purchasing power now, which is almost the same equivalency as every racial minority group in America. And for context, the entire outdoors industry in America is an $887 billion industry. So the queer purchasing power is more than the entire outdoors industry in our country.
Wow.
And they were not targeting us at all, which made me realize that if this valuable consumer isn't even on their radar, that this culture must be so homophobic that I need to go back into the closet to have any success of trying to crowdfund or get sponsors for this parks journey. And so that's what I did. And have really focused a lot on my advocacy work since then on talking to brands. And I basically tell them, I say, look, you can hate gay people, but you're a really bad business person if you don't market to us. Because in 2016, the IRS said that male households earn $63,000 a year more on average than male-female households, and female earned $11,000 more. Even with the power of the patriarchy double against them, they're still making more money than straight households.
Wow.
And by this point, every Major League sports team had realized that they can sell a lot more season ticket packages to queer couples because 40% of heterosexual people have children in America, 24% of female households do, and 8% of male households do. So we don't have to take Susie to soccer practice on Tuesday, or we're a lot less likely to have to. So we could go to an NBA game and buy merchandise and buy beer and spend our money. So corporate America has realized that queer consumers are this like unicorn, for lack of a better term, of a customer. Yeah. And so when I went to Outdoor Retailer, when they had moved from Utah to Denver, because they said Utah wasn't progressive enough, I was like, oh, cool, this progressive industry, they're going to totally love talking about this. And the number one answer I got from them was that they said it would be too political and that they would offend too many of their customers if they even put a gay person in an ad, and that it wasn't worth it financially for them. So even the brand said, our customers are so homophobic that if we just put a queer person in an ad, it would hurt our bottom line.
Wow.
And that strangely mirrors some of what we see today. Namely Bud Light, Target, Disney is getting some backlash, kind of from a different angle. But would you say that there's been progress, forward movement?
The whole reason this is happening is because we're winning. 7.2% of American adults now identify as LGBTQ plus as of 2022. Millennials, 10.5% identify as something other than cisgender or straight. Gen Z, it's 20.8. In fact, pretty much
really?
it's been doubling every generation that they've been tracking this. Which,
we are going to change them all to gay.
Well, yeah, which some people would look at those stats and say we're a bunch of groomers who are recruiting people.
Right.
But I look at that and I say, well, as the world becomes more accepting and more willing to just let people be their damn selves, then people are saying, cool, if the world is more accepting, then I can be myself. And it just turns out a whole lot more of us are fabulous than we thought
we were. There's some preacher in you.
Oh, there's a lot of preacher in me.
I believe it.
That's awesome. No, I mean, yeah. You're making me excited hearing that stuff because like we hear so much negative stuff all the time and we hear, I mean, there's a whole list of all the negative things that we could hear about. And a lot of times I think that that's what we get focused on and we don't take the time to do the research to find out what's going on the good side of things. So, which guilty myself, because we hear about so much of the laws that are being made and banning drag shows and banning transgender care. It's all stuff that we need to fight for and we need to stand up for. But it's good to hear some of the good things that's happening as well in our community.
What I do want to point out as a cis gay man, and I don't think I'm the only one on this podcast here, I think it's really important right now that we stand up for our trans family members because they are being targeted in a way that it's the same tropes that were said about us 10 and 20 years ago that we're going to, hurt the kids. And they've just taken the script of what they said about gay people and it doesn't work anymore. So now they're doing it to trans people. And I think it's really important for us to stand up and say that this is tale as old as time. Once again, Beauty and the Beast here. And it's the same script, different cast.
100%. 100%. I mean, and we are in Texas, or Patrick and I are in Texas. So we hear about it all the time. And I know a single mother that moved her and her child out of state just because they knew the direction that Texas was headed with it and everything. It's sad. And the transgender community is such a smaller part of the LGBTQIA community as a whole. I really agree with you that we need to stand up with them and back them and be able to do everything we can do to be able to fight these laws. It's a critical time that we're in.
Well, and I do want to remind that humans existing as themselves is not political.
Yeah, right.
Like it's a simple concept, but that's real. I mean, that's groundbreaking. That idea shouldn't be such a shock. Like it's a very, very simple concept. Humanity
to us, but to the lawmakers and those running for political offices and stuff, they love to feed off of that and they like to make everything political if they could.
Well, and I used to live in DC for 4 years and I remember talking to people who worked, they were queer people who worked for politicians who were publicly anti-LGBTQ+. And I said, how do you do it? And they said, oh, they don't actually think those things. They just have to say them to get reelected.
Yep.
And I'm like, doesn't that make you feel even worse? That they're like, you know what? My power is worth more than my relationship with you.
You are expendable at the expense of getting new votes. And that's what they're doing to an entire community.
Yeah. No. So what are you... tell us more about exactly what you're doing to be able to raise awareness, because you are doing quite a bit to raise awareness, to try to champion change. And also what are some simple things that our community can do other than make a social media post about it or, let's put some feet to this thing.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I'm a big honey over vinegar guy. I once had a boss who said, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. And I love that. So I love to go to brands and say, look, I'm bringing you an opportunity right here. I'm bringing you a solution. I love to go to people and say, I'm going to bring you something fun and an awesome community of people that you can have a great time with. And you can increase the number of people on your nonprofit board because, once again, we're less likely to have kids. So we have more time to volunteer for personal activities that interest us. So never focusing on the negative and always focusing on the positives is really important to me. And I know that I probably sound like I'm selling out our community as just dollars and cents, but I've learned that when you talk about our economic power, that's when brands listen. And I mean, I remember Barilla made some anti-gay comment, and like the gays said they were going to boycott them, and like 2 days later, Barilla was like, "Here's our rainbow pasta." So
Yep. I remember that.
We do have a lot of economic power, and I've found that it's a really great way to get respect, is to wield it. And so I focus a lot on talking to brands on the benefits of marketing to us. In 2021, I went to the running event, which is the largest gathering of running brands in North America every year in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
And I went around to every single booth and I said, "What are you doing for LGBTQ plus inclusion?" And,
oh, wow.
And nothing was the most common answer. But there was one brand called Tifosi Eyewear who said, "Tell us more." And I gave them all the reasons why making a Pride product is a great idea. And just this month, they released their new BU collection, which has sunglasses that are in the rainbow colors, and trans colors, and non-binary colors,
Awesome.
and a whole bunch of different color arrays that allow people to represent themselves while they're running, while they're cycling, while they're working out. And I just think it's such a great example of a brand listening to my advocacy work and saying, "You're right, this is an opportunity to do the right thing and to make some profits in the process." And they are donating the proceeds from that product, from the BU collection, to the Outside Safe Space program, which is something that I run that gives individuals a way to make the world a more welcoming place. And I emphasize that individual thing because I think we hear about homophobia and racism and all these isms, and they're these huge worldwide problems. And we think, well, what can I do to solve that? I can't fix that. I don't have that power. And I like to remind people that all of us have the power to influence the world. We're all influencers on the people we know and the people we meet. And so I created this program, the Outside Safe Space program, which makes pins and stickers and patches in a queer designed tree that you can see on OutsideSafeSpace.com if you want a visual of it. And I ask allies to wear this symbol when they're in outdoor and rural places. So those places that are traditionally outside of welcoming spaces. And the idea is that much like the original upside down pink triangle safe space symbol, whether you're a queer person or a straight ally, if I am out in the middle of nowhere on a trail, hundreds of miles from the nearest neighborhood, a few miles from cell phone service, and maybe an hour since I last saw another human, if I come up to you on a trail and I see you wearing this pin or I see the sticker on your water bottle, I'll know you're an ally. And I won't have to lie and say that the person I'm hiking with is my brother to feel safe. Or I won't have to butch up my voice to like just not be physically attacked. I think of a friend of mine who we did an all queer rafting trip. And he was a trans man, and he was talking about how he had actually rafted that canyon before. And it was with this like 3-day trip with a whole bunch of bro-y straight dudes. And he said, I was so scared that trip that they would find out that I was trans and that they would physically attack me for it, that I can't even remember what this canyon looks like. So he said, I'm really excited to go down this canyon with a group of queer people so that I can finally see it.
Wow.
And so to me, the Outside Safe Space program is a way that each of us individuals can say, I can't solve homophobia, but I can put a damn sticker on my water bottle, or I can put a pin on my backpack, so that if I meet that one person who feels alone and who feels unsafe and they see me, that I have made a difference in their world.
Nice.
That's
baby
amazing.
steps.
Yep. Yeah, baby steps. We're back to it. You don't gotta jump to the 3-year. Yeah.
Like I'm grateful that nothing happened to your friend and that he was able to actually go on a second one. But the word that jumped out at me was fear. And that is going to be a very, very big emotion for a lot of people, especially currently. Even at the Pride Festival last weekend in Dallas, I was making sure, I know where the nearest exits are. It's again, everything was safe. It was very well planned, well executed, and protected. But we have this fear in our community that it is just can't be sustainable. Like we have to, get out of that. I like the idea of like the sticker or the pin. It goes along with putting your pronouns in an email. Like it's a very like subtle, under the radar, like way of just telling somebody like you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no like ill intentions toward you. You're welcome with me, and that is, I think, what helps mitigate some of that fear.
And what a beautiful gift that you can give someone. And as I tell the Minnesotans here, I'm not from here, but Minnesotans are proud of being passive aggressive and not talking to strangers. And I say, this is a way that you can show how Minnesota nice you are, and you don't even have to talk to anyone.
I love that. Do you have any idea how many people, allies there are that are currently wearing the symbol?
Oh gosh, I mean, just based off of the pins that I've had made and that I've either sold personally or that I've sold to retailers who have then resold them, there are at least 20,000 pins and stickers out there.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
I never did that math till now, but yeah, it's hitting me.
That's got to be a good feeling.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah,
have you ever been
cool.
out yourself on a trail or seen one of your stickers randomly? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be great.
Only happened a handful of times, but I've gotten messages from people who said, I saw your symbol and I asked about it, and I didn't realize how emotionally I would get moved by that. And people said, I started to cry just because I didn't expect it. I didn't expect to see that in a place where, people have told me that their car got keyed at a trailhead and the only thing they had was a human rights campaign sticker on it. Or people who said they were on a 10-day backcountry tour, and on day 3 they mentioned they were a lesbian, and suddenly these fellow tourists who had been super nice to them, like, didn't talk to them for the rest of the trip. And so I think we all have these experiences as queer people of being left out because of who we are, and those are just exacerbated when we leave these urban centers that so many of us fled to just group in larger numbers. So to go back to these rural places that we left for our safety and for our mental health, and to feel something we didn't feel at the time, is really revolutionary.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing. For everything that you're doing. Like, you're really making a big impact on the community.
When you grow up in Nebraska, you have a lot of stuff you want to do with your life, and you go out and do it once you're free.
Right.
So it's all pent up energy.
Exactly. People are always
That's
I do a lot of professional speaking gigs, and people always say, "Where'd you learn how to speak?" And I say, I failed a bunch. I did, small speeches and guest preaching stuff, and I learned what didn't work, and then I learned what worked, and I just started doing more of what worked than what didn't work. But again, you start small, and in this case, that's a small pin or sticker.
Love it.
Amazing. Patrick or JC, you have any other questions or thoughts around Micah and what all he's doing?
So I did have a question, and this is more of like a devil's advocate sort of thing. Do you put more weight on corporations that are active and or supportive of LGBTQ plus organizations with their pride campaigns? Like there's advertising to the queer population, and then there's pride marketing with proceeds benefiting blah blah blah. Is there a difference for you?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I'm always a fan of, even if you're just rainbow washing your logo. This might not be popular in the queer community, but I love corporate pride. I'm like, put that rainbow on that crest logo. Like, give me that Aflac home insurance rainbow duck, because I can tell you, First National Bank of Nebraska is not doing that. But when Wells Fargo nationally does that to their logo, it shows up in Nebraska. So I love, even if it's rainbow washing, even if it's pandering, I love that that's something. And at the moment, we'll take something over nothing. Sure. But what really turns me on, what I'm really into, if you're looking at my grinder, is supporting a company that's doing it year round. Yes. And Delta Airlines is one of my favorite examples of this, because I think so many companies are like, well, if we include a queer person in an ad, then we're going to be known as a gay company. And I'm like, well, we're 1 out of 15 American adults. So even if all you did was put us in 1 out of 20 ads, you're still underrepresenting this $1 trillion consumer market. But what I love about Delta is at their Minneapolis airport, which is often rated as the #1 airport in North America. Quick plug for my city I live in. Mm-hmm. When you walk the jet bridge down to Delta's planes, they have like 40 photos along the jet bridge. And there's like a Black veteran and an Asian male businessman and a straight couple. And there's one ad that's advertising premium economy, obviously. and it's two men who are watching something on the same screen, and they're very obviously not brothers. You know, they're not tonguing each other, but one of them has his head on the other one's shoulder. And every time I fly Delta, as I'm walking down that jet bridge, I look at that image. I see the other ones.
I know that picture.
I look at that one and I say, take my gay money. And let me tell you, I am a loyal Delta queen. That if those other airlines are cheaper, I'm like, nah, Delta. I'm like, take my gay money, because they show up for me year round. And when they introduced that you could connect your Starbucks account and get Delta miles for it, it was a gay male couple in the photo. They didn't have to do that. Yeah, that had nothing to do with Pride Month, and they get it. We are 1 out of every 15 American consumers. And if you target market us, then the people who don't want to see it probably won't even see it. That's smart business. And it also makes loyal customers who want to give you our $63,000 a year more on average gay money.
Right on. Definitely. I remember I'm a big goofy Disney dork, especially the Walt Disney World in Orlando. And it's been a couple years, but they did come out with a park map for, I think, Hollywood Studios. And it had a same-sex male couple on the cover. Never seen it before. Like it wasn't Pride Month. It was just because Disney as a company has grown and really kind of leaned into their support of the queer community. But this sort of predates that. And like, as a big Disney dork, like I was like, they see me. Yep. Like it was, you know, and it's a park map for a theme park. I get that, like, it's very, very low stakes, but when the right people see that, like, it makes a difference that even 3 or 4 years later, I'm here talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, that was years ago, and now you can't open up TikTok or Instagram without seeing them Disney gay couples like doing everything Disney. So there's your proof.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like the subtlety of it like has a bigger impact. And I think it, to me, it means a lot more when they show their support outside of June, because they're not just kind of jumping on this bandwagon of like, hey, it's June, let's all get in that mindset. It's like, no, like, we're gay all 12 months of the year.
Yes, and
support us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a handful of amazing sponsors for LGBT Outdoors, and they absolutely rock it out during Pride Month, and we're super grateful for that. But more and more keep coming to us of those same sponsors, and they're leaning into the year-round sort of concept. Like we need to be doing something to connect with you guys throughout the year. And so I'm hoping that that's a growing trend because while Pride Month and June is absolutely like amazing and important for organizations that are out, doing stuff, bringing their best and making a difference, that annual support is very, very big deal.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out that, we see a lot of like one-off events now. I was just at our Minnesota professional soccer team's Pride Night. And it was the third highest attendance in the history of that league. Just FYI, once again, we show up, and unless the stat has changed, the highest ever attendance was their 2021 Pride game. So once again, when you market to us, we show up.
Nice.
But I remember sitting there, and they rolled out this massive Minnesota State flag, and it had the trans colors, and it said, "You're welcome here."
Oh,
and
wow.
Unfortunately, as you said, Patrick, my next thought was, I really hope nobody blows up the stadium because of this. But then my next thought was like, if someone is here and they're anti-gay, like, I would hope that they could just look at that, and instead of getting angry, if they could just say, "Good for them." This is one game. The Minnesota Twins, they have a Lutheran night, and maybe you're not Lutheran, but like, why get angry? Why not just say good for them? And there's going to be another night that you probably don't care about at all, and you just say good for them. And then at some point there'll be a night that you really love, and then somebody else will say good for them. Like, why do we have to be so angry about when stuff isn't just for us? Like, why can't, as long as we're not hurting anybody else? Yeah, good for them.
Awesome.
Just kidding. I don't have any questions, but I will kind of just go back to what we were saying at the beginning of this. There was definitely a lot to unpack than Justin's intro. So thank you so much for sharing everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Well, true to gay form, I don't pack light, so.
Is there anything else that you're working on, or that you want our listeners to know about, or at the very least, let us know where our listeners can follow you and all that? But
well, since this is coming out this Pride Month, something you could do right now that would be amazing is Eddie Bauer just became the first nationwide outdoor brand to carry the Outside Safe Space pins and stickers in all their locations. Wow. So if you could do me a favor and go to your local Eddie Bauer and buy them out, that would be amazing, because each store only has a limited number, and it's not that many. And so the more that they sell out, the more that it's going to show that, like, this is something that they should carry year round. And then I can talk to other companies and say, well, look, Eddie Bauer carried this and sold out. So yeah, if you like going shopping, I'm guessing a few people on this podcast do, go to Eddie Bauer and get your Outside Safe Space pins and stickers. If you're not near an Eddie Bauer, you can get them at outsidesafespace.com, and I'll mail them to you wherever you are. So those are probably both a short-term thing and a long-term thing that you could do. I've always got some.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. It took 3 years from launch, but slowly, baby steps.
Yep.
And then, if you like what I'm talking about, if you think it's fun, find me on social media. I do mostly Instagram and Facebook. And if you have a company, I do a ton of corporate speaking, of coming and talking to brands about the benefits of LGBTQ plus marketing. So I sort of sneak in to the corporate people by sharing about the stuff that they really like to talk about, but then I sneak in all the inclusion and all the love yourself for who you are stuff. So if your company has that, or if your nonprofit or organization brings in speakers, it's one of the favorite things I get to do, because I get to make an immediate impact, and I also have a really good track record of making straight men cry. So like, in good ways, like, they'll come up and they'll say, like, I never realized, like, my kid might go through what you went through, and I don't want them to grow up feeling that way. And they start to cry because they never had that concept introduced to them in a way that I build my speeches for straight white men, for straight Christian white men, to be comfortable. And so I count my success on how many straight white men I get to cry after each match.
I'll pay you if you can get my dad to cry.
Justin, I
challenge accepted, right?
I tell all my gigs, I say, if I don't get at least one person crying happy tears, I'll give you half of the speaking fee back.
Wow, look at you. We need to get you to come to LGBT Outdoor Fest. I would love to have you at one of our events. We do them annually, once a year, and they're a great time. But we're going to have to talk and see if I can get you to come.
Sounds gay and sounds outdoors. I'm in.
Oh, it has nothing to do with either of those things.
Out.
No, I'm totally kidding. It does. Actually, I'm going through this out there while we're talking about Outdoor Fest for just a little bit. So since it is Pride Month, and we have LGBT Outdoor Fest coming up September 22nd through the 24th, I'm going to throw it out there that if you use my last name, Yoder, Yoder, when you register for Outdoor Fest, you get $15 off of your registration. So,
and $15 is exactly how much one Outside Safe Space pin and sticker cost at either Eddie Bauer or OutsideSafeSpace.com. So register for this festival and then take your savings and get yourself your Outside Safe Space stuff.
Absolutely. I love that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're going to list all your socials and everything in the notes, but what is your Instagram, Facebook, whatever you'd like them to go find you on?
Yeah, just type in my name, Mikah Meyer. That's Mikah with a K, MIKAHMEYER, and I should pop up and shoot me a message. Tell me what your favorite non-capital N, capital P national park is.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mikah. We have really been honored to have you on our Pride podcast this year, and just amazing everything you have going on. And I think you are bringing a lot of positivity to our community, which we always love and we always need.
Yeah.
And so,
thank you for your advocacy work and your determination. I imagine it's a relatively thankless job, but it's so important right now, and grateful for champions like yourself who are out there moving the needle.
Thank you. I take those moments and I save them up for when the trolls come. So thank you. I'm gonna add that one to the basket.
Absolutely,
because I'm sure they come after you. Yeah. To all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you want a free way to be able to help us, like our podcast, review it, follow us. It's simple ways to help boost us in the podcast algorithm. And we want to be able to get our name out there as much as possible to encourage our community to get active outside and make a more diverse and inclusive outdoor space. So until next time, happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
And get out there. Thank you again for joining us this week. If you have a campfire conversation story you would like to share, please email it to us at info@lgbtoutdoors.com. Follow us on Instagram at lgbtoutdoors and join the community at facebook.com/groups/lgbtoutdoors. Become a partner by joining our Patreon, where you'll gain access to monthly bonus stories and exclusive content. For more information on today's episode, check out the show notes. For information about LGBT Outdoors, LGBT Outdoor Fest, local chapters, or to sign up for our newsletter, visit lgbtoutdoors.com. And if you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts.